I'm sick of this Kelsey Mitchell shit. I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. I'm sick of it. The girl didn't score a single point in the second half, and all she do is jack up shots. I've seen more than enough. Either Kelsey Mitchell and Stephanie White need to—
The reaction was immediate from fans, analysts, and nearly everyone watching the game. But now, the situation has evolved into something far more serious than ordinary fan disappointment. According to Sophie Cunningham, Caitlin Clark's teammate, one of her biggest supporters on the court, and the player who has defended her more passionately than anyone else in the locker room, there is a much deeper problem behind the Indiana Fever's ongoing struggles. Cunningham has now shared details that completely change the way fans view the team's confusing offensive possessions throughout the season. The explosive allegation is that head coach Stephanie White directed players to deliberately keep the ball away from Caitlin Clark during games.
Needs to get far, far away from Kelsey Mitchell. Let's get into—
What is everyone talking now is that Sophie Cunningham didn't just echo speculation or repeat what was circulating online. Instead, she highlighted concerns that fans have been pointing out all season long. The slow ball movement, the countless moments when Caitlin Clark appeared wide open without getting the pass, and the confusing offensive possessions that left viewers scratching their heads have suddenly become part of a much bigger discussion. Based on Cunningham's comments, these moments may not have been simple mistakes, poor execution, or breakdowns in communication. She suggested they were connected to specific instructions coming from the coaching staff. If that claim is accurate, it raises major questions about the decisions being made on the Indiana Fever bench. What makes this allegation even more striking is the amount of detail behind it. Cunningham wasn't speaking vaguely about team chemistry, offensive strategy, or system adjustments. She also avoided the carefully worded answers athletes often give to stay away from controversy. Instead, she directly pointed toward head coach Stephanie White, alleging that players were instructed in ways that intentionally reduced Caitlin Clark's involvement in key offensive possessions. That is an extremely serious accusation. Conversations about minutes, shot selection, or coaching strategies are common in professional basketball, but suggesting that a coach deliberately minimized the role of one of the league's biggest stars takes the debate to a completely different level. It shifts the focus from ordinary team struggles to whether coaching decisions may have hurt the impact of one of the WNBA's most recognizable and influential players. If those claims prove to be true, they could explain many of the confusing moments fans witnessed throughout the season, while also raising significant questions about the team's future direction and the choices being made behind closed doors.
She wouldn't even throw the ball to her own shadow because she's so scared of it leaving her hands. She thinks she's going to go into cardiac arrest if the ball leaves her hand.
What makes Sophie Cunningham's remarks especially noteworthy is the role she plays in this situation. She is not an anonymous insider or someone repeating information from a distance. Cunningham has been directly involved with the team throughout the entire season. She has shared the locker room, taken part in practices, attended film sessions, and witnessed the daily reality of the Indiana Fever from the inside. Since Caitlin Clark joined the organization, Cunningham has consistently been one of her most vocal supporters. Whenever Clark faced criticism, Cunningham was often among the first teammates to defend her publicly. While others remained silent, she repeatedly stood by Clark in interviews and made her support clear in front of cameras and reporters. That history makes her latest statements difficult for many people to dismiss. About internal team matters, especially when doing so could create friction within their own organization. In most cases, players choose the safer approach by avoiding controversy, supporting the team publicly, and keeping disagreements behind closed doors. Cunningham, however, decided to speak out. By doing so, she may be putting her own relationships and reputation within the organization on the line. Her decision to address these concerns publicly suggests she believes they deserve attention despite any potential consequences. Whether people ultimately agree with her allegations or not, her comments have intensified the spotlight on the Indiana Fever and sparked even more discussion about what may have been happening behind the scenes throughout the season.
And then Stephanie White and Kelsey are like, okay, Kelsey, we got to get Kelsey hers too. And now it's Kelsey Mitchell's turn. It's just like, it's nasty. This Indiana Fever organization.
It's important to be clear about what is being alleged. If Sophie Cunningham's claims are accurate, then the issue extends far beyond missed passes or occasional offensive breakdowns. The allegation suggests that players received instructions which directly influenced how often Caitlin Clark was involved in the offense. If a professional coaching staff intentionally encouraged players to limit passes to one of their most dangerous offensive weapons, the implications would be significant. Under that scenario, the moments fans have witnessed throughout the season would no longer be viewed as simple execution mistakes or poor decision-making. Instead, they would raise serious concerns about the team's overall strategy and whether certain coaching decisions have prevented the franchise from performing at its full potential. Adding even more fuel to the debate is the game footage itself. Many fans and basketball analysts have pointed to possessions where Clark appeared open and in position to receive the ball, only for the offense to move in another direction. Those sequences have become a major point of discussion because they occurred often enough for viewers to recognize what they believe is a recurring pattern. According to the analysis surrounding this discussion, the available footage appears to support many of those concerns. Possession after possession has been closely reviewed, with analysts questioning why clear passing opportunities were repeatedly overlooked. Their argument is not simply that players made mistakes, but that the same situations seem to happen in basketball decisions are now being examined from an entirely different perspective. Analysts have revisited the film one possession at a time, carefully breaking reflected normal game situations or pointed towards something much more significant taking place behind the scenes.
Ball, like just not passing it, just refusing to pass it. This ball could have been passed a long time ago, Kelsey. This ball could have been passed a long time ago.
According to the analysis being presented, the evidence was not based on a single possession or one isolated game. Instead, the discussion highlighted multiple examples throughout the season where Caitlin Clark appeared open, in rhythm, and in an ideal position to receive the ball. Even so, those opportunities were repeatedly passed over as the offense shifted toward other options. Supporters of this viewpoint argue that the repeated nature of these sequences makes them difficult to dismiss as simple coincidence, adding another layer to the ongoing debate surrounding the Indiana Fever's offensive approach.
To Damiris Dantas rolling to the rim. Give up the ball. The pocket is right there. You see the lane. You see the pocket. Throw the ball. But you want to keep dribbling it and dribbling it. Like, come on.
This is where Sophie Cunningham's comments introduce an entirely new dimension to the conversation. Normally, when fans watch a player repeatedly pass up an open teammate, force a difficult shot, or drive into heavy traffic instead of making the obvious pass, the first assumption is that the player made a poor decision or was simply playing too selfishly. That has been the common interpretation for many observers throughout the season, especially when analyzing several of the Indiana Fever's offensive possessions. In those situations, the responsibility naturally falls on the player with the ball and the choices made in the moment. However, Cunningham's allegation presents a completely different possibility. If her claim is accurate, then some of the decisions fans have criticized may not have been made independently at all. Rather than being isolated examples of questionable basketball judgment, they could have reflected a broader strategy implemented by the coaching staff. Viewed from that perspective, the entire discussion changes significantly. The attention shifts away from individual players and toward the coaches and the organization's overall decision-making. Instead of asking why one player chose to ignore an open Caitlin Clark on a particular possession, people begin wondering whether multiple players were following the same instructions throughout those situations.
She's out there by herself. It's literally a circus when this girl is out there, man. She's in her own world, like she's dribbling in a mirror.
This is why Sophie Cunningham's revelation has changed the way many people are looking back at the entire season. Every confusing possession, every moment when Caitlin Clark stood wide open only for the ball to go somewhere else, and every offensive sequence that appeared to defy basic basketball logic is now being viewed through a completely different lens. According to Cunningham's allegation, those moments may have shared one common explanation. She claimed that the coaching staff instructed players not to consistently get the ball to Clark. The game footage, which analysts have reviewed possession by possession, has been cited by supporters of that theory as evidence that these plays were not simply the result of random selfishness or poor individual decisions. Instead, they argue the sequences appeared consistent with a broader directive being carried out on the court. Whether that interpretation is ultimately correct remains a matter of ongoing debate.
You got Angel Reese celebrating, blocking your shot. I mean, this girl just don't want to pass the goddamn ball, man. It's ridiculous watching Kelsey.
Now the focus turns to Stephanie White because Sophie Cunningham's allegation places the Indiana Fever head coach at the center of what supporters claim could become one of the most controversial coaching stories in recent WNBA history. At the same time, a claim this serious deserves careful examination rather than an immediate emotional reaction. With allegations this significant, it is easy to jump straight to outrage, but the facts and analysis are what ultimately determine whether that reaction is justified. Consider what it would mean if a head coach actually instructed players to avoid passing to a specific teammate during games. Throughout the history of professional basketball, including the NBA, the WNBA, and international leagues, there have been many well-documented examples of coaching conflicts, locker room tension, and questionable decisions involving star players. Those situations are part of the reality of professional sports. However, an allegation that a coach intentionally directed players to limit the involvement of one of the team's biggest offensive stars would represent something far more serious. It would go beyond a coaching philosophy that failed to work or a system that simply did not fit the roster. If proven true, it would suggest deliberate actions that intentionally undermine the team's own offensive potential.
Team is a joke. This coach is a joke. Kelsey Mitchell wants it to be about her. And if she's not making...
The next question worth examining is motivation, because that is what every serious observer of this story is likely to ask. If Sophie Cunningham's allegation is accurate, why would a head coach want players to limit passes to Caitlin Clark? What basketball or non-basketball reason could possibly justify a decision like that? From a purely basketball standpoint, there is no obvious explanation. No offensive system, defensive adjustment, or game situation would normally support intentionally reducing touches for one of your most productive and influential offensive players. If basketball logic does not provide an answer, then what does? Supporters of Cunningham's claims have suggested that the explanation could extend beyond X's and O's, pointing instead to the complicated realities that sometimes exist in professional sports. They argue that factors such as ego, internal politics, and power struggles within an organization can occasionally influence decision-making, particularly when a player's popularity and influence continue to grow. However, any connection between those factors and the allegations remains speculative unless supported by credible evidence.
It's like Caitlin Clark goes off in the first quarter, and then Stephanie White and Kelsey are like, okay, Kelsey, we got to get Kelsey hers too. And now it's Kelsey.
This is where Sophie Cunningham's allegation adds important context to the discussion surrounding Kelsey Mitchell's role in the offense. If Stephanie White had in fact instructed players to limit passes to Caitlin Clark, then Mitchell's ball dominance would not necessarily be viewed as individual selfishness alone. Instead, it would have occurred within a coaching system that either explicitly or implicitly allowed that style of play. Under that interpretation, Mitchell was not ignoring instructions to consistently get the ball into Clark's hands. Rather, she may have been operating in an environment where no such directive existed, or, as Cunningham's allegation suggests, where the opposite message may have been communicated. That does not completely remove responsibility from Mitchell for the decisions she made on the court. Professional players are still expected to read the game correctly, make smart basketball decisions, and move the ball effectively regardless of the system they play in. However, Cunningham's claims provide additional context that shifts much of the attention toward the coaching staff rather than individual players. According to that perspective, the primary questions now center on the decisions made by head coach Stephanie White. Cunningham's comments have brought those concerns into the public spotlight, while analysts and fans continue reviewing game footage that they believe supports the discussion. Throughout the season, the Indiana Fever fan base has debated these same issues, and the conversation has only grown louder. What makes the allegations especially significant is that they come from a teammate who shared the locker room, attended practices, and experienced the season firsthand. By speaking publicly despite the potential professional consequences, Cunningham has intensified scrutiny and prompted even more questions about what may have been happening behind the scenes.